All right, but here's analysis on how the resurrected Barnaby Joyce is playing out in a fairly fiery question time today. I'm joined from quarantine, of course, by Sky News Political Editor Andrew Clennell. Well done you, fronting up even in quarantine. What did you make of Barnaby Joyce's performance today? A bit more bite we saw there, I think, than Michael McCormack. But I did note, I always look at the faces behind the dispatch box where Barnaby Joyce was obviously leading. Pretty sour-looking Liberal faces. What's your take, Andrew?
Well, I was hoping to cross to you from Downing Street, but unfortunately we couldn't do it, Peter, last week. Boris Johnson was holding a presser with ScoMo at the time. So here I am from quarantine and look, I thought he performed pretty disciplined. Labor certainly threw their best at him in terms of asking about the old sexual harassment scandal. He, of course, denies. He had 3 questions from various female MPs in relation to that. He handled it quite well. He didn't lose his rag. He threw it back pretty well at elbow. And I think Labor will be a bit disappointed they couldn't land a few more blows on Barnaby Joyce. But, gee, what a shock it was to see him in the Prime Minister's chair, with the Prime Minister, of course, in quarantine like me, although he's at the lodge. It's just been an extraordinary couple of days down here, Peter.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought Labor seemed a bit flat today, to be honest. I thought they might have had a bit more go at Barnaby Joyce. I'm interested in your take. I mean, yes, there's been a change of National Party leader, but the real issue here is the policy settings around net zero. We've got a lot of commentary now from National Party's front benches, I think brave enough to say that it's not clear that this decision has been made by the government. It's certainly not supported at this stage by their party room, something we didn't hear much from in recent months. Where's this headed?
I saw a lot of that rhetoric, but especially Bridget McKenzie, as trying to force this spill. As I've seen a lot of the statements out of those MPs, or certainly I can tell you there are people senior in government who believe when Matt Canavan jumps up on a lot of things, he was always after this result. So whether or not it settles down now is a question. But on net zero, I thought David Littleproud, when he was interviewed by Kieran today, indicated that they would agree with Scott Morrison on a target, but they want something in return. They want some guarantees around regional Australia, around jobs, I dare say around agriculture. So it won't be as easy a deal for Scott Morrison as it would have been with Michael McCormack. I think they'll exact a far higher price than Nationals, and that'll be something to watch in the months to come to the end of the year, because there's no doubt Scott Morrison wants to take that target to COP26 in Glasgow.
Look, he does. And of course, a new Deputy Prime Minister, a new National Party leader means a changing of the guard, Nationals in Cabinet. What are you hearing?
Oh, Michael McCormack will be out of the ministry. Bridget McKenzie, what a comeback. She'll be into Cabinet. So it'll be Joyce. They've got 4 spots. Joyce, Littleproud, McKenzie, one other, perhaps Keith Pitt, but I'm not sure. Those talks between the Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister were due to start tonight, and we'll have that wrapped up by the end of the week. Darren Chester will, big McCormack supporter, he'll come out of Cabinet. Whether he's in the outer ministry or not remains to be seen. But those are the sort of changes. And Matt Canavan is taking one for the team, is my firm information, Peter. He is not returning to Cabinet or the ministry, is what I'm being told at this point. I guess there's an opportunity after the election in relation to that.
Yeah, as I made the point, he's only just 40. He's a young man, he's a senator. He's 10 years more secure than those in the House. We'll see what happens. I do think he's the biggest brain. He is a sorry omission if he's not in Cabinet, but we'll see what happens. I want to go to this Red Bridge poll in the Herald Sun today. 3/4 of Victorians want an end to lockdowns and border closures once everyone's had a chance to be fully vaccinated. So that's 2 vaccination doses. Thumping majority of Victorians also want schools to stay open in the event of future lockdowns, and they want all the health advice put out there on the table. Now, hear to all of those things, but this tells me, given where the Andrews government, Andrew, has been for so long, this is a real game changer. This has moved in recent months. Like, Victorians have had a gutful, no secret there. What I'm surprised about is the government, federal government's out there urging everyone to get vaccinated, but there's no clear plan about what vaccination means. Does that mean you can freely move around Australia? Does it mean you get around lockdowns? Does it mean we're going to have changes in terms of international borders? How can we get this far down into the vaccination rollout and not have a sense as a country about what vaccination, fully vaccination, means?
Yeah, in fact, far from it, Peter. Scott Morrison keeps telling us, the PM, that in Britain, where there's a high rate of vaccination, there's still the virus around. So he's kind of telling us, oh, well, it doesn't kill off the virus. It just makes you less sick. We know that, or tends to, but there's all the variants. Now, he's said a few times now 75% of people in Britain are vaccinated. That's one dose. And when I was in Britain and saw news coverage around this, it revealed that 33% less chance of COVID from one dose, a 70 to 80% less chance of COVID from two doses. So there is a big difference. And there they've had 56% of people who've had two doses. So they've got a way to go in relation to that. But that is the concerning thing. Scott Morrison in no hurry to move on the international borders from current arrangements for at least 6 months, probably until after the election. And we still have no idea what sort of world we're going to see out of this. And I can see why you have concern about that, because so do I. All of us would like a lot more predictability and hope that the vaccinations could have more effect. I guess what we're going to see from the federal government too is a move towards trying to encourage the states to report hospitalisations, not just cases, because if you're vaccinated and you're not that sick, it's not that big a deal. Now, Victoria, I do find that poll very interesting, because it shows the Libs with a much stronger primary vote. It shows Dan Andrews in a bit of trouble for the first time. It's been hard from other states to see why he hasn't been in trouble before over all the lockdowns. And we know that one of the reasons it's put is often Michael O'Brien's performance. And we know from time to time there's a bit of speculation that you yourself could be the state Liberal leader, Peter, although I don't think you're interested in that, are you? But we've seen that a lot of commentary around that the Liberal Party's not performing, and I don't think they are performing as well as they could. So for Daniel Andrews' stocks to be dropping is a real warning sign for that government.
Yeah, look, my read of the polls, and there's been a number of them in Victoria, it's that the Victorian government's losing ground. It's not so much the opposition's gaining ground. Now, of course, governments lose elections. Oppositions rarely win them, although they amplify, I guess, the mistakes of government. But I think that the Victorian opposition, if they can't land a punch on an absent leader and 4 lockdowns, I think they're struggling to land a punch at all. I've got to ask you, every time you have an interview with the Prime Minister, you always ask him, he gets a bit shirty, but you always ask him about would-be election timing. Do you think with the change to Barnaby Joyce, it's more likely he'll go early or less likely?
I think it's more likely. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think with the vaccination rollout and how slow it's been, he prefers 2022. But it's weird. He used this language, if there was a major political event, he might change his mind on that. Well, I think a change of Nationals leader is a major political event. And it's bizarre that this occurred just last week in Paris when I interviewed him. He said, well, I don't see a major political event. Do you? Only to come back and see this bill. But what's been put to me by senior ministers, etc., before, Peter, is what he meant by that usually was if the Labor Party was in chaos, then he might be tempted to go. Mm-hmm. But this really changes the dynamic again. So it'll depend on what the polls say. The polling in recent months has been very good for the government. The Liberal polling, much better than News Poll. That's my information. So he might be tempted later this year. Let's see.
Yeah, of course, it is the gift of the Prime Minister. And anyone in political circles who says they know, let me tell you, they don't know. It's the Prime Minister and no one else who'll make that call. Andrew Clennell, thank you for your time. Enjoy, well, as much as you can, enjoy quarantine.
Thanks, Peter.